The country's gross domestic product has increased by 1.6%. The third quarter data from StatsSA has beat market expectations, which were moderate in a forecast that the country would avoid a technical recession. The latest reading has been attributed to the performance in economic activity, including agriculture, manufacturing, transport services, and others. This follows a 0.7% drop in GDP. That was in the second quarter, which was attributed at the time to the effects of load shedding and the devastation caused by the floods over the Easter holidays in Kwazulu Natal. Let's get you more on this now. Go to our business reporter, Ntokozo Khumalo, who's been watching that release of this latest data. Ntokozo, so a sigh of relief for many, but how good is this news in reality?
Thanks, Tembekile, from that. Yes, indeed, as you said, some good news and a sigh of relief with stats out of Statistics South Africa showing some economic growth in the third quarter, with 8 out of 10 industries registering some growth. And for a little bit more now on those numbers, we are joined by the Deputy General at StatsSA, Joe de Beer. Joe, thank you so much for talking to us this afternoon. Now, some would argue that we did not really see any real fundamental growth in the economy, despite registering growth that took us back to pre-COVID-19 levels. What were the main drivers of GDP growth in the third quarter?
I think the one encouraging part of the growth in the third quarter was that it was so broad-based. Although it was dominated by agriculture, which grew by about 20%, it contributed half a percentage point. Only 2 of the sectors did not contribute positively. The one was electricity, which we're all aware of the supply side problems, and the second was personal services. But all the other sectors managed to make a positive contribution, albeit very small. So it's true to say that it's not the strong growth that we might want to see, but at least everybody is chipping in positively.
Now, the primary sector, particularly agriculture, was not expected by analysts or economists to be such a main driver of that growth as well in this quarter. Why did we see such a leap in agriculture specifically during this quarter?
Agriculture is very interesting because it's so weather dependent and therefore very difficult for analysts to predict what the outcome will be. But we did see very strong production from agriculture, in horticulture, field crops, as was mentioned. What will happen in the fourth quarter, we'll have to see. There might be some late rains. I saw some of the planting might be delayed a little bit. So for now, our estimates are for this very strong growth. Whether it will be sustained, we will have to wait and see.
And just looking at manufacturing and mining, that of course remain important industries for South Africa's economy. What movements were registered in those 2 sectors?
Both of those sectors reported positive growth. On manufacturing, especially the automotive sector, gave us a very strong showing. We should recall that in the second quarter, automotive was struggling with the floods that we saw in KZN, so they managed to bounce back quite nicely. And then with both mining and manufacturing recording positive growth, that spilled over into the transport sector, which gave some impetus to the land transport particularly, because all these goods that were manufactured had to be transported to give us the strong export growth that we saw.
And just as a closing, Joe, you did say at the top of the interview that 8 out of the 10 industries recorded positive growth. What was happening in those 2 industries that did not record that positive growth and actually saw declines in the third quarter?
On the side of electricity, we know about the rolling blackouts that we've had. Luckily, the sector is so small, it made no impact on the overall growth number. And on the personal services side, it was a decline in the employment on a provincial government level for health and education, which saw a detraction in their economic output.
Let's leave it there for now, Joe. Thank you so much. And of course, that was Joe de Beer, who is the Deputy Director General at StatsSA. Now, of course, Tembekile, we are expecting to hear, reactions from economists and analysts throughout the day on how they receive the data that came out of StatsSA, whether it is really a sigh of relief for South Africans that we are registering some growth. Until then, it's back to you in studio.
Ntokozo, thank you very much for that update on the latest GDP numbers out today from StatsSA.